Jau National Park was founded on September 24, 1980 by a decree of the Brazilian government as part of actions taken to promote global integration. The authoritarian government of Brazil had the goal of preserving the biodiversity in the area and facilitating education. Although the park was not contested, many indigenous peoples in the area were evicted as a result of the park being formed. In the 1980s, the Amazon Victoria Foundation, along with IBAMA, took over the management of the park. They expanded on the programs put in place by the government and developed a more comprehensive, community-based management plan that included the traditional people of Jau. In fact, it is the most biodiverse region of the Amazon, containing many species of fish, reptiles, and even some big cats like jaguars. In 1991, Jau Park managers started keeping records in a database to begin baseline for species in the area. Managers can now monitor population changes and see trends, whether there is a need for elevated conservation efforts. Unfortunately, this fragile ecosystem is being threatened.
As Brazil's largest protected area, Jau National Park has several direct threats. Even though the park is about the same size as the state of Massachusetts at approximately 5 million acres, it only has 4 full-time staff, including the head of conservation and 3 park rangers. There have also been an additional 26 volunteer guards trained, but it is up to the 4 full-time staff to patrol and maintain the park. Because of these insufficient management resources, it is impossible to ensure that visitors follow all of the rules of the park and that visitors or poachers do not enter illegally. This in turn leads to unsustainable visitor use, particularly with overfishing of the rivers. However, probably the most severe direct threat to Jau National Park is the poaching and extraction of native species. While some of the poaching and extraction is targeted at large animals, this does not appear to be all that common. Instead, the most concerning threat in Jau is the extraction of several types of native turtles and fish, particularly fish from the Unini River. The most commonly extracted turtles are the big-headed Amazon river turtle, the yellow-spotted river turtle, and the red-headed Amazon river turtle. These 3 species make up 95% of the turtle extractions from Jau National Park. Intensive fishing of the Unini River by 250 local families was also of concern to the managers of Jau, as it is unclear whether this practice was sustainable or whether it will have a negative impact on the future of these types of fish.
One of the management techniques that has been implemented for Jau National Park and the communities that surround it is one that some call a living relationship. This idea, in theory, means that any resources used from Jau must be used in a way that will leave no shortage for the generations that follow. The hope is that the communities and managers of the park can work together to curb the widespread threat of poaching and species extraction because there are more people advocating for the idea that will benefit the entities involved. This community-based management approach has allowed several communities of traditional people have a say in how Jau is managed, what their community infrastructure looks like, and how goods are marketed from the park that have been used by their ancestors for generations. This type of management approach began in the 90s after a long authoritarian rule that had previously seen all traditional people banned from the park's interior and resources. Both the Floresta and Lazaro communities on the outskirts of Jau have partnered with IBAMA, the Brazilian Institute of Environment and Renewable Natural Resources, and the Amazon Victoria Foundation, FEA, to manage the park and consider themselves agents of environmental protection. These traditional people help monitor their own communities to prevent overharvest of fish in the protected areas and poaching of threatened species like the native turtles, as well as report any illegal taking of wildlife within Jau's boundaries by visitors. Between the community at the mouth of the Unini River blocking commercial, unsustainable fishing and the IBAMA boats at the mouth of the Jau, the flow of illegally extracted resources on the park land is under control. IBAMA and the FEA have also educated communities surrounding Jau on conservation practices and how they can help regulate unsustainable uses of the land. This information is passed on to other members of the community through word of mouth as the educational ball gets passed on to the next generation. In return, these communities are allowed a voice during park management decisions and have stated that they do see a positive change in their standard of living by being active in the management process of the park. Studies have taken place that look at resource compensation for these communities, but no official stance has been taken by IBAMA or the Brazilian government at this time. This community-based plan is continuously monitored and seems to be working well. All the potential biomarkers that would indicate an excess of environmental pressures from humans, things like population density, use of technology, and garbage in the rivers, aren't being seen, which points to the fact that humans and nature are coexisting in this environment very well. As for the human value end, a residents association has even been formed in the Florester community that is fighting to allow traditional people a permanent place within the park's boundaries. Overall, Jau National Park is thriving because of a collaborative management effort between all of its stakeholders and should be used as an example in future global conservation efforts, especially in working against the threat of natural resource and species extraction.